starting it.
Wait.
And, are you serious?
Oh, we were waiting for the anthem to be over. Did you hit
wait
it already?
for the anthem.
You're live now.
Thank you, Ms. Rossi. Well, good afternoon, evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us again. Those of you who were able to, we get together each Thursday, first Thursday of the month at 1700 Korea time, 1800 Guam time. We have developed that in our communication plan from the Dodea Pacific West District as just a kind of a consistent, measured, regular approach to communicating. We try to bring information and specialists, and we have some wonderful, knowledgeable experts to share with us again today from the district. And so what we do first, we kind of introduce ourselves and give information, and we answer some questions, and we try to share with the community. My name is Jeff Arrington, and I am the superintendent for Dodea Pacific West District, which includes South Korea and Guam. And here with us today, we have...
Hello, I'm Dr. Helen Bailey, and I am the community superintendent, and I'm stationed here at Camp Humphreys, and I am responsible for working with the administrators here on Camp Humphreys.
Yeah, hello, I'm Joel Grimm, the Chief of Staff for the Pac West School District, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hetty Flannery. I am the Assessment Accountability ISS for the Pac West District.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Madonna Guimau Spencer. I am the Instructional Systems Specialist for Korea and Guam. I support school nurses, school psychologists, and Section 504 coordinators.
Good evening. I'm Gail Wiley, the Community Superintendent in Guam.
And good evening. My name is Jason Sheedy. I'm the principal here in Guam at Guam High School.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to all those who joined us. Logistically, there are questions that you can post in the Q&A. We have a moderator that pushes them forward so we can answer. We also collected questions ahead of time so that we were able to be ready to answer those that had kind of standing questions before hearing the information on this activity. We're going to start out tonight, and we're going to share a little bit of information about where our district is in regard to enrollment and numbers in our Dodea Virtual School and then numbers in our brick and mortar school. Dr. Bailey.
Yes, so here at Camp Humphreys, which is our largest complex, we have 3,118 total students in the enrolled at Humphreys. And among those, we have 154 who have selected to attend the virtual school. So that remains 2,964 students that are in person at Humphreys. And in Osan, we have a total of 900 students. 26 of those are in virtual school and 874 are in person. In Daegu, we have 599 students enrolled, 18 of which are in the virtual school, which leaves us with 581 who are in person.
For Guam, up north, we have Anderson Elementary School. 649 students are in person, and we have 130 students virtual. At Anderson Middle School, we have 216 students in person and 47 students virtual. For Guam High School, we have 387 students in person and 72 students virtual. At McCool Elementary Middle School, we have 777 students in person and 73 students virtual.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey and Ms. Wiley. So I have a little bit to share also. We had a remote learning survey that we put out in Korea. Now, right now, our schools in Guam are in-person school, and they have been for the majority of the school year and continue. but those in Korea know that at winter break, coming back, we went into HBCon C here and went into remote learning. Now, we've got, just to kind of give the history, we were the first district to go into remote learning way back in February a year ago now. And we actually, before there was remote learning, we actually stood up remote learning in 2 days and started administering that. And so as we figured out what to do, other people started going out of school and then kind of following with the remote learning situation. And we did some learning. And at the end of the year, we went into in-person for a few weeks to do some end of school activities. Well, Ms. Rapp had sent out a feedback form across the region for all the districts, and we collected data for our district and for other districts, and that was sent to us. We used that because unfortunately at the first of this year, we were all in remote learning as we started, Guam and Korea. We used that to develop our remote learning strategies, that feedback we got. So we implemented, and then Guam and Korea went back to in-person, which was great. And then after winter break, Korea went back into remote learning again. The great news is we last night got the information that USFK is going to HBCon Bravo in Area 4, which is Daegu. So that starts at 0600 on 8 February, Monday, and Tuesday morning, we will be going in Daegu to in-person learning. So we're hoping that Osan and Humphreys will follow directly behind and we'll all be back. But while we're in remote learning, we took another opportunity to ask the families in Korea to give us feedback on our remote learning and how it's going. So we waited a week or so because if you can imagine, you can't give really feedback until you've been in remote learning. So our elementary students did start after winter break, but our high school and middle school students had semester exams. And that took about a week and a half to go through the semester exams and end the semester. So they've only actually been in remote learning after taking semester exams for about a week and a half now. So again, we wanted to give a little bit of repetitions for them to give us good feedback on it. So we put out a survey, we don't do surveys, we put out a feedback form, and we got good response. We had about 125 responses from families, and that's about 5 to 7% of our families. So it's good information for us to have. And after getting that, we kind of asked some open questions, but pretty pointed, but open as far as the response. So here's some of the feedback. It's still ongoing. We still have more to get, but so far. All right, so one of the things we asked is very important. Do you have the technology and resources you need in remote learning to be able to accomplish the work that's in the Google Classroom? Out of the responses, 98% said yes, they had sufficient technology and resources. 2% said no, they didn't. That's one of the great reasons that we got actually contact information so that we could get back with those families and support them. Out of the 2%, 1% of those, the response was the resources they needed was to go back to in-person learning. So it wasn't really a technology or anything. They said they just need to go back to in-person learning. The other one, the answer was that it was a complicated schedule with their family, so we're going to do the support. It wasn't lack of hardware, but kind of how to set the schedule. All right, so one of the other things we asked, very important, was we have currently a Monday through Thursday where we have live sessions coming together with the teacher. Then on Friday, we have an opportunity to do small group, individual support for remediation, helping those kids behind, those kids that are ahead, having office hours with kids and parents to see what we can do to support, but not whole group live sessions coming together. So we said, what do you think about that schedule? Give us some feedback. So we kind of wrapped that up into those that were kind of positive about it, didn't want to change, those that were neutral about it, and those who wanted to change. So 97% of our feedback said they preferred the current schedule, please do not change it. 3% said they would like to see a change in that schedule. So pretty clear feedback there. The other big question that we asked was kind of the big part. Give us the feedback about remote learning. How's it going? What can we do better? How, what's good? What should we be working on? We are a learning organization and we want to improve. So we got this feedback, and it was 75% of the feedback either wanted it to, said it was good or it was neutral, no specific feedback to for improvement and had no real concern. So about 75% was either positive or neutral. That broke down to like 60% positive and like 15% neutral kind of area. And then 25% had suggested improvements. So we broke that down into categories to look a little bit more about what it said. And about 22% of that was 1% individuals with specific issues related that they needed assistance with. We're going to go back behind that and see how we can support. And then there was 3 other percent there. And one of those, 3 other big categories, 25 categories about. So the biggest category, about 50+% of the people said out of the 25% that had improvements, suggested improvements that weren't okay with the current remote learning, their response was, what you need to do is go back to in-person. So that was the feedback, like to help us specifically just go back to in-person. Then out of the remaining feedback, the biggest portion was about 9% of that 25% said, we'd like to see an improvement in the quality of instruction during the synchronous time, the time that the students are together with the teacher. So we've got to take a look at that about what we can do better and the specific feedback in that 9%. We've got to get better there. So again, good information. 97% want to keep the current schedule. 98%, really 100%, have the hardware they need to take it on. 75% positive or neutral about what's going on with remote learning. 25%, we broke that down, took the biggest chunk, other than going back to in-person, which we'd all like to do. The biggest chunk said the instructional quality during the time that we have live sessions with the teachers. We're going to start working on that, see what we can do. Work together with our teachers, get the feedback from the parents, watch it some ourselves, and then see how we can improve, because that's what we always want to do. Okay, so that's kind of the feedback across so far across the remote learning information that we got. And at this time, we're going to Dr. Graham, who's going to give us a little bit of information about our FIST.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. As the Chief of Staff, I get to do a variety of different projects, and I also get to be the boots on the ground leader for our FIST team, which stands for Forward Integrated Support Team. Those are the folks that work behind the scenes, that do our facilities, IT, contracting, safety, security, resource management, HR. And so I coordinate projects with them, and they work on a team from headquarters down here to our district. And I'm not gonna do justice today because we're on such a short timeline, but I'm gonna highlight just a couple of projects that I think are wonderful that they've been able to accomplish here in this first semester. Over in Guam, they got the power washing and repainting of McCool Elementary School, changed out some chillers in other schools. On Humphreys, they did a roof repair because of some leaking in Humphreys West Elementary School. They painted the interior and exterior of Humphreys High School and the interior of Humphreys Central. One major feat is just keeping all of the schools supplied with a variety of items during this COVID pandemic, such as wipes and sanitizers and a whole host of other items. Those have come in consistently, working with our headquarters team and AFES. And so I'm very proud of the work of our log team. Our HR team, which is very robust and excited, they continue to hire substitute teachers, and we are in need of substitute teachers. So if you are interested in being a substitute teacher, check out USA Jobs and begin that process and fill out the application, and we will help you through that. We've got a team downstairs that will help you. And then our substitute teachers also attend job fairs here on the installation. So those are a few areas that I just wanted to point out, and I just want to thank our FIST team for all of their hard work. It does take a team. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. And as Ms. Flannery gets ready to go, she's going to present her screen, who is our expert in assessment and accreditation. She does everything with continuous improvement and all of our different assessments, has a lot of hats to take on. I want to remind everybody, and I should have said this earlier, please know that we are certainly trying to get information out in a broad scale here and kind of overarching information. But your first line to get that direct information is at your school with your teacher, with your administration there. That's where you're going to get the answers specific to your children. Some people ask us, why we can't give more specific information, because each situation is so unique. And to help you actually to accomplish what's needed for your child and your child's classroom or an interaction with another student or your concerns in an assignment or with a teacher, it's so specific. We really need to work that directly at the school level. And so we do want to get out broad information. We do want you to know who we are, but that's where you get the first line to get information. We often get a lot of questions about special education. That's another huge one. It's so individualized. That's why it's called an individual education plan. But and 504 is the same thing. So after we give kind of this broader information, please know that team in the school that's there that supports your kid, that's where you go back to really get things done and to get the answers specific to your child. Sorry, Ms. Flannery, I think we're ready.
All right, thank you, Dr. Arrington. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening on the topic of continuous improvement. The focus tonight is stakeholder communication. Before we start, all of our district trainings and professional learning days begin with an overview of the district continuous improvement vision, mission, and purpose. In the PacWest district, we adopt ODEA's vision and mission, the vision of excellence in education for every student, every day, everywhere. And it really coincides with the core value, the very first, which is students are at the center of all we do. PacWest purpose is we are driven by students, standards, and data. The mission of DODEA is to educate, engage, and empower military-connected students to succeed in a dynamic world. With the vision, mission, and the purpose of the PacWest, we have identified a goal, and that goal in the PacWest district is to actively engage students in the mastery of college and career standards. The way we are going to do that and achieve that is through goal objectives of differentiated learning experiences, students monitoring their own progress, and inquiry-based learning opportunities. The continuous improvement accountability piece has the foundation of our COGNI accreditation standards. Tonight's overview is really driven by 3 specific standards. It all involves leaders and stakeholders or stakeholders. And the whole premise of these 3 standards is the communication part. The communication not just to parents, but to every community member or stakeholder who has a direct or indirect effect on a student's achievement and the learning environment. In the communication, we have 2 types of communication we always try and establish: one-way communication and two-way communication. The types of information that is shared is the one-way piece. It's the sender, the messenger, and the receiver. So it's just information going out. The two-way communication is obviously the feedback from the receiver. How often are stakeholders, such as parents, ask for feedback, and what type of feedback is gathered? The desired outcome of the types of communication is to ensure 2 things: to deliver information and to seek feedback so that stakeholder groups such as parents can participate in continuous improvement endeavors. One of the things that we did with the standards is that as a district, we looked at a flow chart and we started with the district communication. Today, you can follow the purple or the lavender, and we're today at a town hall. It's a virtual. We're looking at a communication virtual forum, but we also looked at what kinds of communication are schools doing. And in the other sense on the green, what kind of communication is PacWest giving to the community at large, like Daegu Garrison, Osan Air Force Base. And then at the bigger end, how is that communicated out to the Garrison Facebook so that we really reach as many partners as we possibly can. This particular flowchart has helped schools develop their own flowchart. When schools, this is an example that we have given to schools in the past, The schools currently are working on a matrix, and this matrix will flow into the flow chart, but they're looking at school, community, classroom. And I'm going to show you in the next slide how this flow chart works into their communication matrix. They look at the different levels of how they're communicating one way and two way with the community, one way, two way with the school, and within their classroom themselves, one way communication and two way communication. So every school has been asked to complete a communication matrix that's similar to what the flow chart you just saw. What is your communication approach? It's not meant to exclude, it's meant to list as many types of audiences, the frequency, and who's responsible, who will monitor it, and how often it will be used. This particular communication matrix, which started in school year 17-18, has really helped schools identify the very source of the primary communication when sending out important information or gathering important feedback. So when we talk about communication excellence, we start out with the flowchart and matrix. Then we also looked at how the district, because we have a district CI continuous improvement highlight page on our Facebook page. Then we have flyers, but please be rest assured, when a school makes a flyer to invite parents to their CSI community or CSIL teams, they also post it on their Facebook as well. We have schools that also generate emails, but once again, please be reassured that this particular email that is also on their Facebook page as well. The last is we also have community feedback in the form of Google. But once again, the Google form is on the Facebook page. We know where our communication is. We know how to gather the information. The biggest part is taking that information and analyzing it so that we can improve the learner environment. We invite every parent to be part of a continuous improvement team or conversation. The door is open. They meet monthly and regularly. But please reach out to your school and your leaders, as mentioned in the PAC West District Facebook page. So looking ahead, as I wrap up my session, please be aware and continuous improvement is 365 days, even when school year is out. I love it. And I breathe, eat, and sleep continuous improvement even when I'm not in school. We have CCR Day coming up here in Korea, February 8th, and also February 12th, I believe, in Guam. We have Professional Development Day coming up February 12th for Korea, March 9th for Guam. We have school improvement plans and district improvement plans being reviewed and finalized, and we also have internal reviews coming up in March and April. I wanted to say thank you for this time today. You know, we used to think that we had to have everything perfect in continuous improvement, but really continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. We're going to continuously improve. I used to say in kindergarten, good, better, best. Never let me rest until my good is better and my better is best. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flannery. As we're transitioning to Ms. Spencer, I want to share, that presentation wasn't to say, here's all the things we're doing and how good we are at communication. It was meant to share, here's all the work we know we have to do to get better at communication. So sometimes people think when we present like, well, I can show you many instances when your communication isn't that good. Well, yes, that's why we're working on it. So in no way do we mean to say we have the answer and look at all these great charts that show what we're doing. What we're saying is we understand that we need to improve in this area, like all of our areas, and here's how we're getting after the work. Here's all the many things we're doing to get better. And so we're going to continue that effort. We think we've grown. We don't think that we're perfect. We have a long way to go. And so we're going to continue to do more and get better at our communication. Ms. Spencer. You can go ahead if you want while it's coming up. Dr. Betty's going to bring the presentation up. Ms. Spencer is going to move forward.
I'm going to give you an overview of Section 504 according to DODEA Administrative Instruction Number 2500.14. What is Section 504? Section 504 is the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It was amended in 2008. It is a civil rights statute that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities. Non-discrimination. Disabled students may be provided reasonable accommodations to allow access to educational programs and associated activities to the same extent as students without disabilities. Accommodations. We provide a free, appropriate public education to students with disabilities by implementing reasonable 504 accommodations upon establishing that a student has a disability requiring such 504 accommodations. Well, what do we mean when we say reasonable? Here's an example. A student who requires the use of an assistive technology device, such as crutches or wheelchair, may need to leave class early to avoid hallway congestion. So that student needs the accommodation of early release from class. Referrals for accommodations. You might refer a student for a 504 consideration if the student requires physical assistance, such as carrying books, lunch tray, or has substantial limitations that affect his ability to concentrate due to ADHD. Who may refer a student? Referrals for accommodations. You as a parent may refer a student, classroom teacher, counselor, school psychologist, medical or mental health provider may refer a student. Referrals for accommodations. How is a student referred? You will need to provide a written referral to the student support team at your child's school, the 504 accommodation team, or even a case study committee team, or to the classroom teacher. Include supporting documentation if you have it, such as a medical report from a physician or assessment data. Eligibility determination. Rather than considering only how an impairment affects a student's ability to learn, the eligibility team must also consider how the impairment affects any major life activity of the student, and if necessary, assess what is needed to ensure that the student has an equal opportunity to participate in the school's program. For example, a student with a visual impairment who cannot read regular print with eyeglasses is substantially limited in the major life activity of seeing. Definition of disability. Substantial limitation refers to a disability that is a barrier to the student performing one or more major life activity as compared to an average non-disabled student in the school population. Eligibility determination as it refers to nexus to school setting. The 504 accommodation plan should be prepared only when the student's disability has a nexus to her school setting. That is, affects her learning or progress in school or other education effort. In conclusion, students who qualify for 504 accommodations have the right to accommodations, strategies, or resources that help to neutralize barriers. The Section 504 plan is designed to offer an opportunity equal to that of non-disabled peers to gain the same benefit, free of discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Just another reminder, again, these are our district level specialists in these areas, but we have trained, sorry, did we get cut off? No, we're good? Okay. We have trained individuals in the school to support you with your student and a team around that to support them, as well as with our assessments. We have a trained team to handle those situations and our accreditation and communication and those kind of things. So there's trained personnel at the school, and then these are specialists who can provide additional training or support when there's a question they can't answer. So they literally, Ms. Spencer, if you have a 504 situation and your team's working and they can't come up with the right answer, Ms. Spencer will literally be live in there with you, whether that's in person or remotely through a computer, to help answer that next level of questions. So please take this general information, and if you think this is an area that your child may need or may need to be looked at, go forward to your school and that team. And if they have additional questions, they'll bring them forward and we can actually come in with you and help solve the problem. Ms. Spencer, Ms. Flannery, thank you. We're going to move to Mr. Sheedy, who's going to share a little bit about sports in Guam.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Arrington, Ms. Wiley. Thank you for giving me the time to share the Guam High School current status when it comes to athletics. We have received approval for specific athletic opportunities for the spring from DODEA. At that point, when we received those, we went to the Navy base Guam Commander Captain Grimes and the Navy Public Health for local guidance and approval. Captain Grimes has approved us to practice for softball, baseball, soccer, outdoor volleyball, and track and field. At this time, he has not approved competition with local schools, but he has approved intramurals within Guam High School. We're going to consider intramurals if we cannot compete with our island leagues. We are awaiting his practice approval for cheer, marksmanship, and drill, which already have been approved for practice by DODEA. Our Guam leagues, which include the IIGG Private School League and the ISA, which is the Public School League, are preparing to operate 2 seasons of sports each. The leagues are awaiting approval from Gov Guam Public Health to have athletic competitions on island. Once that is approved by Gov Guam, we will request participation in the league competition on island from DODEA and Navy Command. The first season of sports we are practicing and with permission compete will be cross country, tennis, softball, and beach volleyball or outdoor volleyball. The second season that we are planning on at this time would, for practice and permission, if we get permission to compete, would be golf, soccer, baseball, and track and field. Of course, we must consider the safety of our students and our athletes and our coaches, and we will follow all DODEA Pacific, actually DODEA and DODEA Pacific local command and league guidelines when it comes to the mitigations that will be in place. I know that there has been some talk on the island and in other places that about indoor sports, for example, like basketball or indoor volleyball. But at this time, I feel that the indoor sports would not be supported here on the island. But if that changes, we will make requests and for opportunities for our students to participate in those sports. Lastly, I would like to thank our students, parents, and coaches for their stoic patience as we try to navigate the pandemic and provide student athletic opportunities. I will tell you that our students are doing their very best to meet all the mitigations that we have placed within the school, and they're just biting at the bit to do more and be active outside of the school. And when we had our tryouts for outdoor volleyball, beach volleyball, there was about 50 kids that wanted to come out and play. And we've already had to cut that down and spread them out and turn away a lot of students that are just want to do something athletic. So we're doing our very best to make that happen here. But of course, we have to make sure we're following mitigations. We have to make sure we're being safe. And I just like to say thank you for supporting Guam High School athletics and supporting our students. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Sheedy. And I have the report from Korea also. Again, Mr. Sheedy, who introduced himself at the beginning, principal at Guam High School, and given us the report for Guam. Thank you. Here in Korea, of course, we've just gotten the call to go back to school in Daegu. The rest of the schools are still out in remote learning. We do not have athletics during remote learning when we're out of school, but Daegu will be looking at extracurricular and other jobs and other opportunities as they return to school. We've only got permission to do things together so far this school year with other DODEA schools, and there are no other DODEA schools here in Korea that have been able to come back, and we of course can't travel to Guam right now. So they will look at opportunities to practice. They have the same approval for sports practices as Mr. Sheedy just mentioned Guam does in our district. As our other schools, Osan and Humphreys, come back online, we will be asking permission after COVID planning teams at the schools agreeing, public health, our installation commands, all concurring. We'll go forward to DODEA and request permission, if all of them concur, to have at least inter-school or intra-district opportunities between us. So those are things that we're going to offer. I'm going to hit a couple of questions with that same statement right now. So questions come up like, well, why is CYS having sports and why can't DODEA? You know, what's happening with the things on base looking different than what's in the schools? So here's what I can tell you. First, we know that it's a little bit different, meaning that when we come together in a school, there's up to 1,000 students at one time in the school building. And across CDCs and sports programs, there's not that many. As Mr. Sheedy mentioned, if we were to open up right now, say just an intramural volleyball, there would be up to, like there was at Humphreys Middle, there'd be up to 100+ students that would want to come together, which looks very different than the very measured spread of students outside with the programs with CYS or even some of the indoor programs. So, but here's what I want to kind of share. Our measures are tied to a few things. They're tied to CDC guidances. They're tied to DOD guidances. They're tied to our National Federation of High School Sports guidances. And they're vetted through DODEA and through the Office of the Secretary of Defense. So, so we're following those measures. And as we know, those measures right now say in groups of 5 to 10, you can practice as long as you're not using any equipment or balls that touch each other. Like that's the measure in HBCon Bravo that's allowed within those guidelines. So when we get these exceptions to policy to go beyond that, we're grateful because it's an opportunity for kids as long as it's safe and everybody thinks it's safe. But that's not the measure. The measure is very small groups coming together to do conditioning or skill development without touching anything that somebody else touches. That's the measure for HBCon Bravo. HBCon Charlie is nothing. So those are the measures that we're working within, and that's all the way up through the Office of the Secretary of Defense. It's not DODEA out on their own, and it's with, correlated with those CDC and DOD measures. So another question that came up recently with that was, well, I heard there was an ETP to go to school at HBCon Charlie. Well, here's what I can tell you. Certainly, there was a discussion with USFK and with DODEA and up through the Office of the Secretary of Defense about should the HBCon measure be driving whether we're in-person school or remote. That was kind of the discussion. And USFK had some points about that situation. It went through DODEA to the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. They looked at the decision that was made within the Undersecretary of Defense and the Office of the Secretary of Defense to attach the in-school and out-of-school, remote learning and in-person learning measures to HBCon levels by the local commands. And the explanation about why those were coupled together and how it was based on DOD and CDC guidance was discussed. And at this time, they've decided to continue that decision that was made before the school year started to align in-person learning or remote learning with the HBCon level that the command and the installation and public health decide is where the risk level is in the local community where you're at. So I guess I'm sharing, I want to make sure in no way am I ever saying this is not up to me or us or it's somebody else. That's in no way. It's a coordinated effort between a group of people that are public health commanders and school officials following their organization's guidances, Department of Defense, CDC, high school sports, looking across those and making a decision of the best way to make decisions based on the risk and the best way to look at the risk. And that's what drives what we do. So currently, the decision was made and still remains that based on DoD guidance, CDC guidance, decisions from the Office of the Secretary of Defense and DODEA for this school year, the in-person learning and remote learning would tie to HBCon levels, meaning HBCon Bravo and below will be in-person learning, and HBCon Charlie and above will be remote learning. During remote learning, we will not be able to conduct extracurricular activities. During HBCon Bravo, there's very specific measures we have to meet, and if we think it's safe enough to do things beyond that, we have a process to request an exception to do additional activities. And that's what Mr. Sheedy has expressed is happening now. They're doing what they have approval for, the way they have approval to do it, and they're asking the question, can we do more safely? And waiting for that response. So I hope that kind of hit a big chunk of some of the things that are asked. What we're going to do now is we're going to transition to a rapid fire and see if we can get some of these questions answered that are collected ahead of time. We did have a number of questions that were sent ahead of time. We want to respect those because those people did submit them early to have them in to be considered articulately. And then we'll go to the question and answer chat within this team's live. All right, so I'll either ask somebody here to give an answer, but we'll do a kind of a rapid fire answer. And if you need further explanation of an answer that we have, please go to your school and your administration and they can get a deeper answer for you, or check our sites, and if we have an FAQ or Q&A that we can add more to, we'll do that there. All right, so Dr. Graham, short answer on this. Do you know of any initiatives or projects that are being placed on hold because the funding is being rerouted from kids and school programs to support COVID needs?
I do not know of any projects that are on hold right now because of COVID.
I'm not aware either. I know that our extracurricular programs that we couldn't have, not the ones that we may have, are being taken away, but the ones that we couldn't have, where the funding wasn't used, they are certainly collecting that funding to see if they can use it to support something COVID related. But that's things that we aren't able to utilize because of the COVID situation, not taking away a future opportunity. That's the only thing I know about. All right. Special education hits a number of these about what we can do in remote learning and special education. It sounds like I'm just blowing over it. I'm not. What can we do? We can try to do everything. We can try everything we can, but it starts with your child's team back at the school level. So you have to take that child's needs back to the school level and say, in remote learning, here's what's required. And the team talks about it, not just one person, but the team. And if it's required, we can go as far as bring that child into the school and bring the services into the school if that's the only way it can be delivered and it's required. It's absolutely necessary for that child right now. It's not just like because I want it or my child has those needs. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is we can do most things that are required to be in the school during remote learning and that are safe. But it starts still back individually with your child in the school with your child's team. So it's hard to, I'm not trying to skip over answers because it's a big question, what can be done? But there's more to it for my child about a specific situation that's going on right now. And without knowing the rest of that statement, I can't answer the question, and it looks like I'm avoiding it, but I'm not. So again, it goes back to that team in your school, but no, if it's needed, there's almost nothing we can't do as long as it's safe and it's required and it's the only way it can be delivered. All right, I think that hits a number of the SPED ones. Again, they're all kind of similar to that, and that was a broad answer. And again, I hope that kind of shares. Go back and work it with your team at the school. The feedback loop, we kind of shared the information. We'll be getting people together to see what that 9% that had remote learning suggestions about instruction during the live sessions, how we can get better. That's what we'll be working towards, working to improve. So the communities meet and basic feedback, okay, based on knowledge. Fourth graders to fifth grade. Ms. Wiley, how about you take that one? So this is a question just simply saying, what kind of things can we do? This is 4th to 5th. I'm going to say for you 5th to 6th. It's talking about transitioning from elementary school to middle school. And here it's 4th to 5th because we have at Humphreys, the 4th grade in the elementary and the 5th grade is over in the middle school. But the answer is the same. What kind of things do we do, and will they be limited in COVID for kids transitioning between one school level like elementary to another like middle or middle to high school? Do you want to give some examples of some things that we do, and maybe will they be impacted by any COVID measures?
Normally we have where students go and observe the school and spend time at the school, or the counselors come to the elementary school. So that again goes back to what Dr. Arrington said. You coordinate with your local school to see what type of things they will do in this environment. But I know that the counselors will probably go to the school and talk to the other counselors and talk to the students in their classrooms. So that's normally, and the students normally go to the middle school and observe and spend time. But I don't know that we're going to do that, but you can definitely go and speak with the principals and the counselors at the other school, at the middle school.
Thank you, Ms. Wiley. We are a problem-solving machine, so we are going to find a way to do it. It may not look the same, so we may have, kids on a computer looking and going around the school. I've done it myself. Mr. Sheedy actually was wonderful. He had this rolling tripod, and it was a stabilizer, and I visited his school virtually from Korea to Guam, and we went around and we observed classrooms. We talked to kids and teachers. I did not feel limited at all. I was on video, but he put, I guess it was a phone, was it, Mr. Sheedy, or a phone or a tablet? Phone? Okay,
I was using a phone, yes.
On a rolling tripod that was about eye level, and took me around with him. No bumping, no motion sickness, no anything. It was awesome, it really was. But at a minimum, those are the kind of things that we can do. Here's a day in the life of a 5th grader at Humphreys Middle School or a 6th grader at Anderson Middle School. And we can bring those kids in, not just video, but even live. So it may look a little bit different, but we will find ways to help students feel comfortable transitioning to that next level. And so I guess that's a charge for all of us here. I'll say it now. That's a charge. We need to start thinking right now, what will we do before this school year ends, regardless of COVID, plan A, plan B, to have transition opportunities for students going to another level of school.
And all of our principals will certainly have ideas as to how they are going to help our students transition.
Absolutely.
So you could also discuss that with your principal.
And that question's timely. It's the right time to start thinking about it. Thank you very much for providing that question for us. Let's see. Sharing from me in this area. Okay, county district. Exception of policy with Abrams, we did that. Well, parents obtain. Oh, great question. Dr. Bailey, I'm going to give you this one. Mm-hmm. Will parents have the option to enroll their children in virtual school next year? And if so, will that be semester commitment or a year-long commitment?
At this time, of course, we are looking at our enrollment and our manpower, and we have not received any final determination from the virtual school as to what virtual school, if any, what that will look like for next year. But as soon as we get that information, we will certainly get it out to our parents so that if they have to make a decision, they'll be able to make it in a timely manner.
Yeah, we're just not there yet. We're still confirming manpower and students and those kind of things. We are organizationally, not just the district, but organizationally, we haven't answered the question of what virtual school looks like next year. But we'll push to get an answer out as soon as we have it. Dr. Grimm, I'm going to give you the opportunity for a real brief answer to this next one. When are the Korea employees for DODEA getting their COVID vaccination shot?
We are not sure of that. the vaccinations are arriving in Korea. We just had Doc Cohen here for an earlier meeting with our employees and share that they are going to be able to be vaccinated, but we just do not have a timeline for that at this point.
Yeah, and there was a long discussion about everything with it. We did with our teachers just before this forum. We had a forum for all of our educators. And the answer is we know where they fall and we're almost to that level, but there's not been enough shots to do it. So there's no way we could predict when that might be. So more to follow on the vaccinations. In Guam, they've started vaccinations and continue to look at what's available, and some of the teachers have started to receive their COVID vaccinations.
I would like to answer the question that just popped in. Every one of our IEP students and our students who are on an IEP or have a 504 plan, there's a requirement for them to have a transition plan meeting prior to going to the next grade level or to a new school or a new category of school, if they're going from elementary to middle school or from middle school to high school. It's a requirement to have a transition meeting for our students on IEPs.
And how can we incorporate any virtual things? Ms. Spencer is 504 nurse psychologist, but she is also a prior special education instructor. I'm going to ask Ms. Spencer, will you take back to our special education specialist that question to make sure we're brainstorming ways to include transitioning of our students on IEPs, and not just with everybody else, but what other things virtually, if we have to, can we do to make sure that they understand what it looks like in that next level environment.
Yes.
So if you could share that
Yes,
back, thank you.
Most definitely.
All right, let's see what we got. We're going to get through these because it's going to be quick. 4th to 5th, we got that one. Great. Parent education. I'm excited about the improvements and increase in parent university that we have. We're starting to get some things out there. I started this at the end of last year and first of this year. Was one of my goals was to get a parent university site up and start getting some information out. And it's just started, but it's started. And so we see that as something that we're going to kind of keep a repository and accumulate. There is a site, a Google site, and then we're posting it on our Facebook too. And we're just going to keep growing that so that you can go get that information. The General Abrams, we did that. Okay. We did the children. See the plans from there. Okay. Well, ESY. Oh, ESY. Great question. So we sure expect and hope so. ESY is something that has to be funded and approved, but for our students with special education that have shown to have gaps from absences based on data in the past, is our extended school year is what it's for. So in other words, when a student, let's say we collect data when they're gone over winter break for a couple of weeks and they come back and we see regression from where they've the level they've started to achieve in their goal, we see a regression, then we identify those students as probably having a regression over the summer. So we put a program in place where they have extended school year, they have school during the summer to ensure that we don't have that level of regression over the summer. It's individualized, it's based on data that the student does regress when they're not in school. It's an individualized program for a period of time. We ask teachers to teach it, and we give them additional pay for that. But we're in the planning phases right now of not only extended school year, but potentially our host nation culture program and a summer school program. But it's all in the planning. So, but we do anticipate having an extended school year program for our special education students who have data-based regression during their absences. Okay, we're almost there. Stakeholders monthly, vaccination, street, transition opportunities, videos. Got it. We hear you. If we do the virtual tours, we'll video and get those posted too. I think we're down to the end of it. So we went long again. We're going to get this shortened down. I told everybody here we're going to try to keep it to 30 minutes or less. We went about 54 minutes, so we weren't even close. we're gonna get it narrowed down where we give you information out there, we answer questions, and then we come behind it at our school levels to provide, clarifications or additional questions that you have. I want to say this last as we end, as I did in the teacher meeting. We gave information, we tried to answer some questions. We're here on a monthly communication, but what is most important is people. And that's our students, and that's our teachers, that's our parents and our families, and our military community. So after all that's being said, we need to also think, and maybe first think, of what's most important, which is each other. So I'm going to ask everybody here, this is all communities, but the two things I've asked is please first think about what you need to do to take care of yourself. It's like the old adage we talked about on the airplane, you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you're awake to put the other oxygen mask on other people and help them. To think about what you need to do to keep your own self healthy mentally and physically, to keep yourself safe and mentally healthy. And then second, I asked if everybody will pick one other person to think of and reach out to during all of what's going on, to check on and make sure they're okay and make sure they know that they have somebody that thinks about them and cares about them. I think we would all be a whole lot better off. So if, in addition to your family and yourself, maybe find one other person that you're going to check on during these times so that they know somebody cares and they have somebody making sure their well-being and their safety is taken care of also. So I'm going to leave it on that note and say thank you to everybody. Special thank you as we close. So I'm going to ask Miss Rozzi, Mr. Swenson, and Mr. Black, if it's technologically capable, will you please turn your video on? You don't have to turn your audio on, but would you please turn your video on now? These three people are behind the scenes. They help us set up this around the world opportunity to stream. We're all over in Guam and Korea and everywhere else. You see Andrew Black there, and Miss Rozzi, there she is, and Mr. Swenson, where's he?
He's still in the circle.
Oh, okay. You didn't see them, but they are critical to us being able to have this communication. They're behind the scenes. Want to recognize them and say thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Good night, everybody. Bye.